I'll never forget the night I drove alone on Route 66, the GPS leading me down a desolate stretch of highway with no signs of life in sight. It was as if I was the last person on Earth. And then, I saw it, a figure standing on the side of the road, waving at me to stop. I hit the gas, but my car sputtered and died. That's when I realized I was truly alone, and not alone at all. As I sat there in the darkness, I noticed the figure hadn't moved. It was still standing, waiting for me. I tried to start the car again, but it was dead. The silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. That's when I heard the whisper, a soft, raspy voice that seemed to come from all around me. "You shouldn't have come here." I tried to call for help, but my phone had no signal. I was completely cut off from the world. The figure started moving towards me, its pace slow and deliberate. I locked the doors, but I knew it was a futile gesture. The voice whispered again, "You'll never leave." Suddenly the headlights flickered back to life, and I floored it. I sped away from the figure, but I could feel its eyes on me, boring into my skin. I didn't dare look back. I drove for what felt like hours, my heart racing with fear. Finally, I saw a sign for a town up ahead. I took the exit, praying I'd find safety. But as I entered the town, I realized it was deserted. The streets were empty, the buildings abandoned. I was still alone, and not alone at all. I drove through the town, searching for any sign of life, but there was none. Just the feeling of being watched, of being hunted. And then I saw it, the figure standing in the middle of the road, waiting for me. I knew then that I was trapped in a never-ending nightmare, forever alone on that desolate road.
About 2 years ago, I was driving home from a family reunion pretty late at night, and the drive was about 2 hours. I didn't stay the night because I had to be back for work the following day. Most of the drive was on roads with dense bushes and trees on either side. The real creepy ones you see a lot in movies. Anyway, I had been driving about 45 minutes, and I was starting to get really tired. You know how sometimes you just suddenly become really tired out of nowhere? Well, yeah, that happened to me. I knew I wasn't gonna last, but I didn't come across any place that I felt I could park and safely sleep. Anyway, after it became clear to me that I wasn't gonna find a place to pull up, and my tiredness wasn't going away, I did something very questionable. I pulled over to the side of the road onto the grass, behind some bushes, to try and hide my car from anybody else who was gonna come past the roads weren't empty. I came across another car every few minutes or so. I made a mental note that the time was 11:22 and then fell asleep. Some time later, I was awoken by a scratching sound. I looked at the clock. 11:50. The sound stopped after a few seconds, and because I was still extremely tired, I didn't bother looking around and simply went back to sleep. I was later awoken by the same sound, and it was now 12:40. This time it really freaked me out because the sound didn't stop. The thought ran across my mind that it was just an animal inspecting the car. But why would it return almost an hour after it had left the previous time? I looked in my rearview mirror and just managed to catch a glimpse of something running away into the... Now, at the time, I thought it was the damn hook killer. You know, the one that scratched that couple's car and then slaughtered the guy when he got out to investigate. I thought to myself, so I got the hell out of there. There was a bend no more than 100 yards up the road, and as I came around it, there was a car parked off to the side of the road with the driver's side door opened. I slowed down just to look to see if anyone was in there. There wasn't. Then I looked in my rearview mirror. I didn't see anything, and all of a sudden, this guy comes sprinting around the corner. He starts screaming at me, shouting stuff like, hey you, get out of your car, now. I noped the fuck out of there and sped off. I never saw the guy again. Moral of the story, don't sleep on the side of a deserted road. My house sits farther back in the lot than most other houses. It is a strange layout as well. The sidewalk runs the length of the living room and ends at the front porch. which lets into the living room. Large windows that do not open allow great light to get into the living room, but at the cost of no privacy. The rest of my family was on vacation, and having the house to myself, I decided I would get smashed. Well, I passed out on the couch in the living room at about 9, when I realized I was too scared to walk back to my room. The couch is right underneath these big windows. I woke up suddenly, not knowing why. I had a severe case of the chills, and I could not figure out why. Then the banging started. It came from right above me. I did not move, but I opened my eyes and looked up at the window. Someone was standing there, pounding on the glass. Without moving, I looked at the cable box. It was around 3 in the morning. The banging continues. Then it stopped suddenly, but I still did not move. Suddenly, it commences again, coming from 2 different directions now. Someone is banging on the window, and another person is banging on the front door. They kept doing it, would not go away. Finally, after about 40 minutes, they quit. It was the most terrifying event I can recall at the moment. It made me a nervous wreck after that. I called a friend the next day to see if he would come over and stay for the rest of the week, and his response was, "What for?" So that we can both be murdered in our sleep. Thanks a lot, and he went away, but a new scary night was waiting for me.